They were all laughing. Emma had said it like a joke. Like a knife slipped under the ribs with a smile. It was one of those Sunday lunches that her mother liked to pretend were tradition. Long tables under the pecan trees behind her ranch house outside Austin, peach cobblers sweating in the heat, plastic cups of sweet tea, folding chairs that sank into dry grass. Family, or something that passed for it. There was no real tradition there. Just habit and heat and a need to pretend that something unspoken still held everyone together. Karen sat beside me, not close, not far. Just enough distance to be noticed when I reached for the pitcher and her hand didn't move to meet mine. She'd brought a salad that no one touched and wore that thin, polite smile she saved for when she didn't want to fight in front of her mother. It was the kind of smile I'd memorized over the years. One that said, "Be still, don't start." We'd been arriving separately to these lunches lately. Different cars, different moods. She used to wait for me at the door, keys in her hand, shoes clicking with something like pride. Now she drifted in earlier, helped set the table, folded napkins, swapped recipes with her sister. By the time I arrived, I was an afterthought. Emma, 22 and back from grad school, had taken over the center of the table with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. She had her father's jaw and her mother's charm, a dangerous inheritance. When she walked in, people paid attention. When she spoke, the room adjusted around her. The conversation that day was aimless. Mortgages, gas prices, some distant cousin's wedding. Someone brought up wills. Someone else joked about who'd get what when grandma finally passed. It was all normal until Emma shifted in her seat and looked right at me with that crooked little smile that always meant trouble. "Oh, don't worry about him," she said, tilting her head toward me. "He doesn't decide anything. All the important stuff gets handled without him now." The silence that followed was thick. Not shocked, not horrified, just loaded. Then her brother laughed, sharp and short. Someone else chuckled. Even her grandmother, the one who still called me the second husband like a title, let out a quiet, knowing little breath of amusement. The wave moved down the table. One of the cousins clinked his spoon against his glass like he wanted to toast the moment. And Karen, my wife, the woman I've carried through layoffs and panic attacks and every cracked bone this family ignored, didn't say a word, didn't look at me, didn't frown, just reached for the salt. I felt my chest go still. I didn't speak. I didn't look at Emma, didn't ask her to repeat it. I didn't defend myself or make some half-hearted joke in return to soften the blow. I just sat there and let the words settle. I thought maybe Karen would shift in her seat, maybe correct her daughter, just gently enough to preserve the mood. She didn't, and I realized something then, not like a flash, not like a lightning bolt, but something slower, deeper, like a bruise you didn't know you had until you pressed down. They weren't laughing at a joke. They were laughing at truth, at least their version of it. A version where I was the furniture. A version where I showed up, paid bills, mowed the lawn, fixed the roof, and shut up when the real decisions were made. A version where I could be thanked in public but ignored in private. A version where I didn't decide anything. Not about Emma's tuition. Not about her move. Not about the house I shared with her mother. Not about anything that mattered. It didn't start that day. It had been building. Emma had stopped calling me Mike years ago. Now it was always him or your husband or just silence when referring to me in third person. Her texts to Karen never included me. She made big decisions with her mother behind closed doors and told me afterward like it was a formality. Karen called it just being independent. I called it something else. I looked down at my plate, brisket, corn pudding, one half-eaten biscuit. My hands felt heavy on the fork. I chewed, not because I was hungry, but because it gave me something to do. There were voices again. Emma had moved on to some story about her new internship, a professor who adored her, a law firm that already wanted her full-time next spring. The table was smiling again. I wasn't part of it. It was like watching a stage play where you knew your character had already been let off, but you were still standing in the wings, waiting for someone to notice the lights had gone out on your side of the set. I'd made that brisket, smoked it for 8 hours the night before while Karen scrolled her phone on the patio and told me that her mother wasn't sure about the rub I used last time. I made it anyway, not because I wanted to impress them, those days were gone, but because I believed, somewhere deep down, that effort still mattered, that showing up still meant something. I know better now. After the cobbler was passed around, Karen gave me the smallest slice. I waited. I didn't say much. I smiled when someone joked about my car. I nodded when they asked how work was. And when the table started to empty, when someone stood to collect plates and the cousins wandered toward the hammock, I stood. "Thanks for lunch," I said to no one in particular. I nodded at her mother, gave a polite half-smile to her sister. Emma was still laughing at something her brother had said. She didn't look at me. Karen looked up briefly. "You heading out?" I nodded. "Yeah, got a few things." She nodded back. That was it. I walked to the car. The heat clung to my shirt. The sun was high. The gravel cracked under my shoes. I didn't slam the door when I got in. I didn't start the engine right away either. I sat there for a moment, keys in hand, staring at the windshield like it might offer something. A vision, an answer, anything. But all I saw was my reflection in the glass. Faded, slightly distorted. The kind of image you get when the light outside is just a little too bright. And in that reflection, I saw it clearly. I had been written out. Not angrily, not violently, not with malice, but with indifference. With the kind of quiet, steady erosion that takes years to complete. Like a shoreline disappearing grain by grain while the family builds sandcastles further inland. This wasn't a fight. It was a burial. And they had just handed me the shovel. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of anger. Not because I wanted to replay the moment or draft some final speech I should have made at that table. I'd already accepted the silence. I'd already understood that my name didn't sit in their mouths anymore. I didn't need them to say it. I just needed to stop carrying the weight of pretending it still mattered. So I sat in the dark. Karen came in around 10. Her heels clicked gently on the hardwood, and I heard her humming in the bathroom, a song she only sang when she'd had wine. 2 glasses, maybe 3. She didn't speak to me. I didn't speak to her. She slid into bed with the ease of someone who believes everything is normal, who believes silence means peace, not distance. I stayed in the office. I kept the lights off. Just the blue glow of the monitor lighting my face like a confession booth. And I opened the files. Not the emotional ones. Not the photos. Not the saved emails. Not the scanned Christmas cards with her kids' names scrawled across the bottom like afterthoughts. No, I opened the real files. The numbers. The infrastructure. The map of everything I built for people who now laughed when my name was mentioned. Bank accounts. Tuition schedules. Credit card agreements. The insurance policies with riders I added for her daughter's emergency dental when she was 17. The health premiums I paid on time. The joint account she never touched except to fund Emma's move to Philadelphia last year. The one they called their own little secret when she asked for help behind my back. I looked through them all. Mortgage statements with my name. The minivan Karen drove that I'd co-signed for when her credit was sh*T. Emma's graduate loans that somehow ended up with my email address on file. I stared at the list and realized how many times I had been useful. Not loved. Not honored. Just leveraged. That's what it was. I had been a resource. I think I always knew. Somewhere. I think there was always a part of me that understood they didn't love me. Not in the way people love a man who shows up early and leaves late. They appreciated me. They used words like generous and solid and a good guy. But love? Love looks you in the eye when someone disrespects you and says enough. Karen didn't say enough. She sat at that table and let her daughter call me irrelevant. And the worst part? She agreed. Maybe not out loud. But her silence was an open letter signed and notarized. At 6:40 a.m. I acted. Not with rage. Not with revenge. Just precision. The kind I'd used all my life when putting broken things back together. Only this time I wasn't fixing anything. I was shutting it down. First, I opened the tuition portal. Emma's grad school account was tied to a monthly autopay I'd set up 2 years ago. The kind that just ticks along while no one thanks you. I clicked cancel. A pop-up warned me that future invoices would go unpaid. I clicked confirm. Next, the joint credit card. Karen had never asked how we covered the balance each month. She just assumed it worked like plumbing or good weather. I removed myself. Another click. Another confirmation. Access revoked. Then the car insurance. Her son, Matt, still listed as a secondary driver under my policy. 24 years old, full-time employed, but still coasting on the back of my plan. Removed. Effective immediately. Each step felt cleaner than the last. Auto payments gone. Shared logins locked. My name erased from every line where it once stood like a guard dog, silent and dependable. I paused when I reached the savings account. The one Karen and I had opened after our wedding. We called it the family cushion. Funny word, cushion. As if it were meant for all of us to land on together. I had contributed nearly 90% of it, but it still bore both our names. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, I opened a new one. Solo. Clean. I transferred half, exactly half. Not out of spite. Out of fairness. She could keep the rest. She'd earned that much, at least by proximity. But not a penny more. Then came the notices. I drafted them one by one. Not emotional. Not cruel. Just factual. To the university. Please be advised that I will no longer be financially responsible for Emma, last name, S tuition as of this date. All future invoices should be directed to her or her legal guardian. To the landlord of Emma's apartment, please remove my name from any informal guarantor agreements associated with tenant Emma, last name. I will not be providing further rent support. To the health plan representative I'd emailed 6 months ago when Emma needed therapy. Please terminate dependent coverage under my employer-sponsored plan. Effective immediately. Took an hour. By the time Karen stirred upstairs, I had done what she never would. Drawn a boundary. I sat back in my chair and looked at the screen. Clean. Still. Final. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relieved. Like I had put down a weight that had been soldered to my spine for a decade. Karen came down the stairs in her robe. She gave me a sleepy half-smile, the kind that used to mean something before it became a placeholder for affection. "You're up early," she said, voice hoarse. "Couldn't sleep," I said. "No reason to lie now." She walked into the kitchen, started the coffee. The way she used to smile when she saw me in the morning, that was gone, replaced with routine. She didn't notice the tightness in my jaw. She didn't ask what I was working on, because she didn't need to. Somewhere deep down, she already knew. When the kettle whistled, she looked over her shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, just taking care of a few things." She poured her coffee, sat across from me, opened her phone, and said nothing else. The first ripple hit by 8. It started small, a quiet knock on the bathroom door while I was shaving. "Mike," Karen said, her voice too casual to be innocent. "Did you change something with the credit card?" I didn't answer immediately, just wiped the blade, looked at myself in the mirror. I hadn't shaved in days. My face looked older than I remembered, but cleaner. "I removed myself," I said simply. "It's yours now." There was a pause. "Wait, what?" I stepped out, towel around my neck. "You said I don't decide anything." I figured that should include finances too. She blinked. "I didn't say that." "No," I said, passing her in the hallway. "Your daughter did. You just agreed." She didn't follow me. She didn't ask more. Not then. But the panic began. I could feel it crawling under her skin like heat. By the time I sat down with coffee, her phone was already buzzing. A text from Emma. Then another. Karen's expression tightened with each one. "They're saying tuition hasn't cleared," she muttered half to herself. I nodded. "I know." She looked up. "What do you mean, you know?" I turned it off. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. You can't just do that." "Can't I?" I said. "You all made it very clear I'm not a part of those decisions." So I stepped back. Let the people who are involved handle the bills. "Mike," her voice rose cracked. "This isn't how you handle things. You don't just pull out like this." "I didn't pull out." I said, setting my mug down. I was pushed out. There's a difference. Her face reddened. Emma's your daughter too. No, I said. She's not. She made that very clear. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. I just looked at her like she was a stranger who'd wandered into my kitchen wearing my wife's face. The next call came from Emma herself. Karen stepped into the hallway to take it, but I heard everything. What the hell is going on? Emma hissed through the phone, her voice sharp even through the drywall. The school says the account's locked. They won't release my transcript. I have a meeting with the firm next week and… Karen tried to calm her. She used the same voice she'd used with me when she wanted something to go away quietly. Soothing, tired, practiced. He's being… difficult, she said. I'll talk to him. Just hang tight. Difficult. That was the word now. Not broken. Not betrayed. Not discarded after years of service. Just difficult. I went outside. Mowed the lawn. Trimmed the edges. The sky was overcast and humid, the kind of day that makes your shirt stick to your spine. I didn't mind. I liked the sound of the trimmer. It drowned out the noise inside. When I came back in, Karen was waiting. We need to talk, she said. So we did. She asked questions. I gave answers. I didn't hide anything. I laid out every account I'd pulled my name from, every agreement I'd stepped away from, every cent I'd stopped paying. You're hurting them, she said at one point. No, I replied. I'm letting them feel what it's like to live without me. Her eyes welled with tears. You can't just erase yourself. I didn't, I said. They did. I'm just acting accordingly. She had no reply to that. By afternoon, the calls doubled. Emma again. Then Matt. Then the school. Karen took each one in another room. Her voice tighter each time. Her tone drifting from confusion to panic to apology. Then came the email from the landlord. Emma's rent had bounced. The auto draft had failed. I watched Karen read it. Her lips parted, trembling slightly. Did you? Yes, I said before she could finish. That was me too. The silence that followed was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I didn't flinch. I didn't apologize. I just watched her sit there with the full weight of my absence pressing down on her shoulders for the first time. I think that's when it hit her. Not just that I had stepped away, but how much I had been holding up. Quietly, without thanks, without recognition, without demand. The dam broke later that evening. Emma showed up. No warning, no call. Just the sudden slam of a car door and footsteps up the porch. Karen opened the door before I could get there. Emma didn't greet me, didn't look at me. She pushed past me like I was furniture. This is insane, she said. Do you understand what you're doing? I need that transcript. My interview is in 3 days. If they find out I'm behind on tuition. You are behind on tuition, I said. And you're not my responsibility anymore. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just disbelief. You're really doing this. You're really gonna screw me over because of some joke I made at lunch? I met her eyes. It wasn't a joke. Karen stood between us, hands up like a referee. Can we all just talk? I looked at her. We are. Emma paced wild-eyed. I don't believe this. After everything you did for me. After everything I let you be part of. Let me, I said. She froze. I stepped forward, slow and deliberate. You didn't let me be anything, Emma. I was the one who showed up. I was the one who paid when your dad disappeared. I was the one who filled in the blanks while you told your friends how strong your mother was. I was the man behind the curtain, making sure you never felt the wind even once. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Karen whispered, Mike, please. No, I said. Let her hear it. I turned back to Emma. You made your position clear. You said I don't decide anything. So now, I don't. Emma's hands shook. Her face was pale with rage. You're unbelievable. I nodded. Maybe, but I'm no longer a fool. She left without another word. Karen didn't speak for a long time after that. She just sat at the kitchen table, staring at her hands like they might start bleeding. The next morning, the school called again. Karen took the call on speaker this time. "Mrs. Thompson," the voice said, formal and clipped. "We've still not received tuition for your daughter's account. We'll need confirmation of payment or a signed deferral agreement by end of day tomorrow." Karen looked at me. I looked back. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. The line went dead. That night, Karen cried. Not loud. Not messy. Just silent tears slipping down her cheeks while she sat in bed and stared at nothing. I didn't comfort her. Because comfort, like money, was something I had given freely for years. And like money, it was now in short supply. 3 days. That's how long it took for everything to collapse. 3 days from the moment I turned off the switch to when the lights finally went out in their lives. They thought I was bluffing. They thought the old Mike, dependable Mike, patient Mike, would snap back into place and do what he always did. Fix it. They didn't understand. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was done. On the 4th day, the begging began. Emma sent the first message. Not to me, to Karen. A **T of an email from her advisor. The university was locking her registration. Without immediate payment, she'd lose her credits, her internship recommendation, everything. Karen came to me with the phone in her hand. "Mike," she said, not gently, not coldly, just tired. "She's scared." I nodded. "That makes 2 of us." "Don't be cruel," she said. "I'm not," I replied. Cruel would have been pretending everything was okay while she used me. I gestured toward the silence between us. "This is mercy." She looked down. That night, Emma called. I didn't answer. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. Her voice was calmer now. No shouting. Just trembling on the edge of something she hadn't known before. Dependence. "Mike," she said. "I know I messed up. I shouldn't have said what I said. I didn't mean it like that. Please, I need help right now." It was the first time she'd ever asked. But I didn't call back. Because what she needed wasn't money. It was to sit in the empty space where I used to be and understand what it cost to lose that. The next day, Karen tried again. "She's young," she said. "You've got to remember that. People say things they don't mean." She was just trying to impress everyone. I looked at her. "Do you believe that?" Karen hesitated. "I think she regrets it." I nodded. "That's not the same thing." "What do you want her to do?" she asked. I set down my coffee. "I want nothing." Her eyes narrowed. "You want her to suffer." "No," I said. "I want her to learn." Karen stood. "Well, maybe you're not who I thought you were." I looked up at her. "Maybe you are." She didn't reply, just walked out of the room. By the end of the week, Emma's emails came directly to me. The first was still polite, careful, like writing to a bank manager. "Hi, Mike. I was hoping we could talk about the tuition situation. I know things have been tense, but I wanted to apologize if I hurt you. I wasn't thinking, and I see now how it sounded. I didn't mean to dismiss you. I've always appreciated everything you've done. I just need a little help right now. I promise I'll pay you back." I read it twice. It was well written, controlled. But there was one thing missing in all the words: ownership. She apologized for how it sounded, not for what she meant, not for laughing, not for watching the table mock me like I was a piece of outdated furniture. She apologized for my interpretation of her cruelty, not the cruelty itself. I didn't reply. The second email came 2 days later. Shorter, sharper. "I guess this is your way of punishing me. I don't get it. You were always the bigger person. What happened to that?" I stared at the line. That was the problem. They'd gotten so used to me being the bigger person that they forgot I was a person at all. They mistook endurance for love, silence for agreement, support for weakness. I closed the email. The third came that night. "Please, I'm scared. I don't know what to do." No pride, no pretense. Just a cracked window where the wall used to be. But still, I didn't answer. I sat in the living room with the lights off, just the blue television glow flickering across the empty furniture. Karen was upstairs. We hadn't spoken since the second email. She moved like a shadow now, quiet, guilt-heavy. but not apologetic. Not once had she said the words I needed to hear. I thought about how long I had carried this family. How many times I had come home from work exhausted and still cooked dinner. How many times I'd driven Matt to practice or helped Emma with scholarship essays when her real father forgot her birthday. How many times I'd smiled through being ignored. People think betrayal is a moment. It's not. It's a pattern. A quiet erosion of presence. A history slowly rewritten by everyone but you. Until one day your name doesn't come up in the family group chat. Until one day your opinion isn't consulted. Until one day your seat at the table is still warm, but your voice has gone cold. I had become background noise, and the only way to be heard again was to go silent. The next week something shifted. Karen sat across from me at breakfast. She hadn't touched her eggs. Her face looked older, the lines more pronounced. "She's dropping out," she said. I nodded. I figured. "She's devastated. She'll recover." Karen stared at me like she didn't know who I was. "You're really okay with this?" I met her eyes. "No, I'm not okay. I'm just done pretending." She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "I didn't mean to make you feel unimportant," she said. "But you did," I replied. "And then you watched them do it too." Her voice was small. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said, and I meant it. That was the shift. The final fracture. I no longer wanted anything from them. Not thanks, not credit, not reconciliation. I had pulled my weight for so long that I forgot what it felt like to walk upright. Now I remembered. A week later, Emma moved back home. She didn't speak to me. I didn't speak to her. We passed like strangers in the same hallway. She ate in the kitchen. I ate on the porch. Karen tried to bridge the gap with awkward dinner invitations. I declined them, every time, because it wasn't about punishment. It was about absence. Sometimes the only way to be respected is to vanish long enough for people to notice what you actually did. The house grew quiet, tense. Emma applied for local jobs. Karen walked on eggshells. I spent more time at work, more time in the garage. I built things. I repaired the fence. I mowed the neighbor's lawn. Anything to keep my hands busy while the dust settled. Then one night Emma came out onto the porch. I was drinking coffee. The sun had just gone down. She stood there for a long time, arms crossed, staring at the yard. "I was wrong," she said. I didn't respond. She sat down. "I didn't get it before. I do now. You didn't just pay for things. You were there." I nodded. She looked at her hands. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to know I understand now." There it was. Not an excuse. Not a plea. Just truth. But I didn't let it move me. Because understanding isn't healing. It's just the beginning of it. I finished my coffee. Stood. "You'll be all right," I said. And I left her there. A month later, she moved out again. Got a job in another city. She still sends updates to Karen, who relays them to me with a question in her eyes. Should I tell her you said anything? I always shake my head. Because this isn't about messages anymore. It's about the silence between them. That silence taught more than my presence ever did. Karen and I, we sleep in the same house, share the same bed. But we don't talk like we used to. Something settled between us, not bitterness. Not quite, just distance. She still makes my coffee. I still take out the trash. But the weight of what she allowed sits between us like a closed door. And she knows it won't open. Because there are things you don't come back from. I was never asking for worship. Not even praise. I just wanted to be seen. So now I live small, quiet, clean. My name is off every account. My hands don't fix what isn't mine. The house is quieter. The family has fractured in places no one admits. But I'm lighter. And sometimes when I sit on the porch and watch the sky turn, I ask myself the question I asked that night, the one I ask you now. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to stop carrying people who never noticed I was holding them? Was I wrong to make them feel what life is like without me? Or was it the only thing left that could teach them what my presence really meant? You tell me, would you have endured it?